Right now, if you stand on the memorial at Pearl Harbor, you are looking at a harbor that was cleared out from underneath the water by hand. Almost every ship the Japanese sank at Pearl Harbor was raised. The attack on the 7th of December 1941 put 8 American battleships out of action in Pearl Harbor, and 6 of them would fight again, not scrapped where she lay, raised, pumped out, patched, floated, and in most cases sent back to the war. Most people know what happened at Pearl Harbor in one morning. Almost nobody knows what happened at Pearl Harbor over the 2.5 years afterwards, and that is the part I want to give you because it is the largest and strangest salvage operation ever attempted. And it was carried out by men working blind inside sunken ships in water full of oil and bodies. The battleship Nevada, designated BB-39 in Navy records, was refloated 8 weeks after the attack. The California came up in March, under the command of Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet. The salvage effort became the largest such operation ever attempted. The West Virginia, sunk on the bottom of the harbor with her side torn open, came up in June, and the Oklahoma, BB-37, which had rolled completely upside down, was turned back over using 21 winches bolted to the ground on Ford Island, pulling on cables for 3 months. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how they did it, which ships came back and which never did, what the divers actually found inside those hulls, and why the man who ran the whole thing is somebody most Americans have never heard of. Before we keep going, thank you for being here, and I want to ask you something genuinely. Where in the world are you watching this from? And has anybody in your family ever done that kind of work? Salvage, diving, shipyard, dockyard? Put it in the comments because those are the ones I read first. Start with the morning, but only briefly, because the morning is not the story. On the 7th of December 1941, the attack put 8 American battleships out of action. 4 were sunk outright. The Arizona, BB-39, was destroyed by a magazine explosion. The Oklahoma capsized. The West Virginia sank upright at her moorings. The California settled into the mud over 3 days. The Nevada, the only battleship to get underway, was hit repeatedly and deliberately run aground so she would not sink in the channel and block the harbor. The Pennsylvania, the Maryland, and the Tennessee were damaged but stayed afloat. By the afternoon from the shore, it looked like the end of the Pacific Fleet. Here is what almost nobody explains, and it is the single most important fact about that harbor. Pearl Harbor is shallow. That is not a detail. It is the reason the United States won the war in the Pacific, instead of losing 2 more years to it. Those battleships did not go down in 4,000 meters of open ocean, where a wreck is gone forever and nobody argues about it. They settled onto the bottom of a harbor in water measured in tens of feet, inside a naval base with its own dockyard, its own cranes, its own workshops, and its own dry docks. The Japanese sank them where the Americans could reach them. And the second thing the attack did not touch. The dockyard itself, the fuel tank farm, the submarine base, and the repair shops were all left intact. The aircraft carriers were at sea. So on the 8th of December, the United States still had in that harbor everything it needed to put those ships back together, and a very strong reason to do it fast. So they started, and the way they started is the part I find hardest to imagine. In the first days, there was no plan and no organization, just yard workers and sailors doing whatever seemed most urgent. It was only in early January 1942 that the Navy set up a salvage division and put a man called Captain Homer Wallen in charge of it. Wallen is the name to know here. He was a naval constructor, not a hero of a battle, and he ran that operation for over 2 years. Under him, the division refloated 5 ships and stripped the guns and equipment off the ones that could not be saved. Now, the work itself. Start with the Nevada, because she was the first and she sets the pattern. She was aground and hold, and to get her up, they had to find every hole in a hull sitting in dirty water and close it, then pump her out faster than the sea came back in. Her salvage alone took more than 400 separate dives, and the divers spent over 1,500 hours in the water on that one ship. She was refloated on the 12th of February 1942, 9 weeks after the attack, and went into a dry dock 6 days later. Then the California, up in March. Then the West Virginia in June, and hers is the job that tells you what this actually took. The yard built 14 enormous patches to close her torpedo damage, each one 13 feet long and over 50 feet wide, curved at the bottom to match the shape of her bilge, built from steel beams and 12 by 14-inch timbers with 4-inch planking underneath. Those patches were floated out, sunk into position against the hull, and sealed. Then you pump, and as the water goes out, the ship comes up. And here is the part that people do not think about when they hear the word salvage. Those hulls had been underwater for months. Inside them was fuel oil, mixed with harbor water, mixed with everything that had been in the ship when she went down. And the men who had not got out, the divers worked in that. Visibility in a flooded compartment full of oil is not poor, it is zero. They worked entirely by touch, in the dark, inside a maze of passages and ladders and doorways designed for men who could see, wearing hard hat gear with an air hose running back to the surface. They had to find hatches, close valves, cut through structures, and place patches, by feel, in a space where a snagged airline is fatal, and they had to bring out the dead, compartment by compartment, and identify them where they could. That is what those hours in the water actually were. When you read over 1,500 hours of diving on the Nevada alone, that is what it means. There is one more thing about the conditions that I want to put in properly, because it is the difference between reading salvage and understanding it. Fuel oil does not behave like water. It coats everything it touches. It does not wash off, and it gets inside the diving suit at the collar and the cuffs. Men came up from those hulls black from head to foot, and the standard method of cleaning a diver was to wipe him down with solvent before he could get out of his own gear. The air was pumped down a hose from the surface, which means every diver was permanently tethered to the world by one line, running back through the same doorways and ladders he had crawled through. Inside an overturned or flooded ship, the geography is wrong. Doorways are in the ceiling, ladders go sideways, and everything that was bolted down is now hanging. A hose can foul on any of it, and the harbor was not clean. The oil was thick enough on the surface in the weeks after the attack that it was a fire risk in its own right. There were also unexploded weapons to deal with. Ordnance disposal teams worked on live bombs inside and around those hulls, including on the Pennsylvania, where an unexploded weapon had to be dealt with by men working in the ship. Now the Oklahoma, which is the one everybody remembers, because she is the hardest thing anybody attempted in that harbor. She had taken torpedoes on her port side and rolled over. She did not sink to the bottom and stay there. She capsized, turning until her masts hit the mud, and she came to rest upside down, with her hull showing above the water like the back of a whale. Over 400 of her men died, many of them trapped inside the overturned hull, and rescuers cut into her from above in the days after the attack and got a number of men out alive. To salvage her, they could not simply patch and pump. They had to turn a battleship the right way up. The way they did it is the most extraordinary piece of engineering in the whole operation. Through the second half of 1942, they built a system of righting frames, great A-shaped structures called bents, on her exposed hull, and anchored cables to them. On Ford Island, ashore, they bolted down 21 large winches. Then they ran the cables from those winches across the water to the frames on the ship. On the 8th of March 1943, they started pulling. The righting operation would continue from the 8th of March to mid-June 1943. 21 winches, working in synchronization, rolling a 29,000-ton battleship back onto her keel a fraction at a time. The process took about 3 months. Think about the arithmetic of that for a moment. Pull too hard on one side and the cables part, or the frames tear out of the hull. Pull unevenly, and she slides instead of rotating. There is no computer, no simulation, no model to run. There are engineers with slide rules, a hull full of mud and oil, and 21 winches that have to be told what to do by men reading gauges. They got her upright. They patched her, pumped her out, and refloated her in November 1943, almost 2 years after she went over. And then, and this is the part of the Oklahoma story that always stops me, she was not repaired. By the time she was up, she was too old, too damaged, and too far behind the war to be worth rebuilding. She was stripped of anything useful, decommissioned, and sold for scrap. In May 1947, on the 17th, undertow to a breaker's yard in California, she took on water in a storm and sank in the open Pacific. She was raised from the bottom of Pearl Harbor by one of the great engineering efforts of the century, and then she sank again, on her way to be cut up, and she has never been found. And there is a fourth ship whose story belongs here, even though she was not a battleship, because she is the one that shows what this crew could do when it had a free hand. The mine layer Oglala rolled over and sank alongside a pier. She was erased in 1942, and unlike the Oklahoma, she went on to serve for the rest of the war, a ship that had been lying on her side in the mud, back in commission. The other repair job that has nothing to do with battleships is the harbor itself. Sunken ships were not just wrecks. They were obstructions in a working naval base. Channels had to stay clear, berths had to be usable, and dry docks had to be freed up. Every week, a hull sat in the wrong place. The base ran at less than full capacity, and the base was, at that moment, the single most important piece of American infrastructure in the Pacific. So what did the whole operation actually achieve? Of the 8 battleships, 6 went back to sea. The Nevada, the California, the West Virginia, the Pennsylvania, the Maryland, and the Tennessee all fought again. Most of them were not just repaired but rebuilt so heavily that they came out looking like different ships. New superstructures, new anti-aircraft batteries, new fire control radar. And here is where this story joins up with the one this channel has told before. 5 of those rebuilt ships were in the American battle line at Surigao Strait in October 1944 in the last battleship duel in history. The West Virginia, raised from the harbor bottom, rebuilt from the armor outwards, opened fire first that night at over 20,000 yards, using the best radar in the line. 2 of the 8 never came back. The Arizona was destroyed beyond any possibility of salvage. Her forward magazines had gone up, and more than 1,000 men are still inside her. The Oklahoma was raised and then discarded. So the score is 6 out of 8, and the 2 exceptions are the 2 where the Navy decided that raising a ship and repairing a ship are completely different questions. And before that, the part of the Oklahoma story that did not end in 1947, when she was righted and pumped out, the remains of her crew came out of her, but the identification methods of the 1940s could not sort them. The great majority were buried as unknowns in the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific in Honolulu, in graves marked only Unknown USS Oklahoma. They stayed that way for 70 years. Then, in 2015, the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency disinterred them and began identifying them with modern DNA work. And the great majority of those men have now been given their names back and returned to their families. Sailors who died on the 7th of December 1941 have been buried under their own names in the last few years, with families who were not born when they died standing at the graveside. That is a salvage operation too. It just took a different 80 years. Which brings me to the thing I did not expect when I started reading about this. The Pearl Harbor salvage is one of the largest engineering achievements in American history, and it is almost invisible. There is a reason for that. It has no dramatic moment. Nobody wins anything. There is no photograph of the decisive second because it happened over 2.5 years, in the dark, underwater, in oil, by men whose names are not on anything. The attack lasted about 2 hours and everybody knows it happened. The salvage lasted years and almost nobody knows it happened. And it changed the war more than most battles did. 6 battleships back in service, plus cruisers and smaller ships, plus the fact that the Japanese never destroyed the base itself. That is the difference between a fleet that has to be rebuilt from scratch in Californian shipyards and a fleet that is back on its feet in the same harbor. The men who did it were divers, welders, riggers, pump operators, and yard workers. Some were Navy, a lot were civilians. They were the people who, on the morning of the attack, had been fixing things and who spent the next 2.5 years going down into flooded ships to bring their friends out and get the fleet back. One more comparison because it is the one that puts the scale in perspective. We have talked on this channel about what it takes to keep a single museum ship afloat today. The battleship New Jersey cost something like $5 million a year to run, and her dry docking in 2024 came to roughly $10 million for hull and paint. After years of fundraising, that is one ship in peacetime with modern equipment in a controlled dry dock with nobody shooting at anybody. Now put that against a harbor with 4 sunk battleships, 3 damaged ones, cruisers, destroyers, a mine layer and a target ship on the bottom. With the country at war, with no certainty the Japanese would not come back, and with the work being done by men in canvas suits breathing through a hose. They cleared it in about 2.5 years. Here is the last thing. Everything this channel talks about, where a ship is now, whether she was preserved, whether she was scrapped, whether she is still on the bottom, starts with a decision somebody made about whether she was worth the trouble. Pearl Harbor is the biggest version of that decision ever taken, made 8 times in a row, in a hurry, in a war. 6 times the answer was yes. Once it was no, because there was nothing left to save. And once, the Oklahoma, the answer was yes, and then, after 21 winches and 6 weeks of pulling and 2 years of work, it quietly became no. There is a sentence in the official account of all this that I keep going back to. The salvage division was set up to refloat 5 ships and to strip the weapons and equipment off the ones that could not be saved. Both halves of that sentence are the job. Somebody had to decide, ship by ship, which list a hull belonged on, and then somebody else had to go down into the dark and do the work either way. On the ships that came back, that work put 6 battleships into the Pacific War. On the ships that did not, it took the guns off them and put those guns somewhere else, because in 1942, a 14-inch gun in a wreck was a 14-inch gun that was not being used. Nothing was wasted, including the failures. So if there is a diver, a welder, or a shipyard worker in your family, tell me. And if anybody watching had somebody at Pearl Harbor in the salvage crews rather than on the ships, I would really like to read that, because those men do not appear in the films, and they should.